Okay.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. I'm just going to follow the leader on this one. So,
Welcome back. Or is it welcome back?
Welcome to another episode.
Welcome to another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. I'm Aaron Stanton with Synergize.
I'm Traver Butcher with Nexus Impact Center.
and I'm Ron Burgundy. Sorry.
Hi.
We're so close.
You know he'll read anything that's on the teleprompter
It's true.
for the last time. And we have Ron Burgundy with us today.
Yeah. Doesn't really look like Ron Burgundy.
Shave the mustache, everything.
Oh, did you
Yeah.
shave the mustache?
Changes everything.
That's like your Kent Clark glasses. Like, yes.
When that comes out.
Exactly.
But yeah, so today we have Eric Maitlen with us.
Two-Eight Ministries.
Two-Eight Ministries, absolutely. Also, my yellow rickshaw back in the day,
It's true.
Yeah.
church worshiping.
Yeah.
You run in a lot of circles.
Yeah. I have adult ADHD, so
Oh, do you?
I have a hard time staying focused on one thing.
I don't think it's adult ADHD. I think it's just ADHD.
That's true.
But
Have you noticed everybody that we've had on
Oh, great.
yeah.
has been ADHD?
So is that what the
With
ripple
the two
effect-
of us,
Yeah.
it's like this is why this is why you need to watch this podcast.
Yeah, it is the ripple of ADHD as an adult.
There you
Yeah.
go. There you go.
The ripple effect of ADHD.
I like it.
That we could have went with that name.
We could.
Do you have ADHD?
Oh yeah,
Really?
I do.
Holy
There's
crap.
no
You're
way.
just like a mature, responsible
Yeah,
version of it.
responsible.
The hyperactivity is the way that my mind goes.
Oh,
So,
okay.
It doesn't come out in
Okay. So
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
disciplined. Yeah, okay.
so.
Because my mind does it as well. The thing is, like, my mind is telling, but my
body-
body, it does the same thing as well. Okay. Well, Eric,
Yeah.
you want to tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the drilling you of the questions?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Political
absolutely.
And kind of tell us where you come from, who you are, what makes you you.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like that.
Where did you come from? Where
All
did
the
you go?
existential questions.
Cotton Eye
good.
Joe.
That's good. No, my name's Eric Maitlen, and I live here in Indianapolis, but I'm from Portland, Indiana, center of the universe, Jay County seat, just saying.
Yeah.
And grew up about an hour and a half northeast of Indianapolis, and love my small town heritage. I still believe that small town people are the best people in the world. So just saying, but yeah, love getting to go home and visit and just experience kind of like that culture where it's like, okay, we can all just calm down a little bit.
Mm.
None of us are that big a deal.
Breathe a little.
You know, it is okay. And I think sometimes, living in the grind here in the city can kind of, it makes it very refreshing to go home. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But from Portland, Indiana, shout out to anybody from Jay County. I am the director and founder of Two-Eight Ministries. We do music and events and media that really amplify hope. And so we say music with a mission. That's one of our taglines. And some of the work that we've done a lot around the state over the last 7 years has been in the space of substance abuse and, addiction recovery, connecting families with resources, helping reduce that stigma that surrounds substance abuse and people coming out of incarceration, and creating events and media and spaces where we can amplify that voice of lived experience and people who have come back from that. And because we unfortunately still lose thousands of people in this state alone each year to overdose. And so we care about trying to use events and to help create spaces that are honoring for people who are maybe struggling with that or are trying to just hold on to that recovery journey, to have a space where they can feel dignified and hear the comeback stories and just hope. We want to connect families with hope. So that's something I'm passionate about. We also we exist to accelerate faith movements around the world, and that's something. If somebody's heard about Two-Eight, maybe in the recovery space, or they've heard me talk about it at even some of our fundraisers, they hear a lot about recovery and they don't hear as much about the global side. But Two-Eight was actually started by my wife Jillian and I when I was 25, she was 23, and we moved into an RV, and we basically took any open door around the world to talk about what Jesus did in our lives and just share the hope of the gospel and what that means to us. And we used music to do that. And Jillian Maitlen used to play bass, if you didn't know this. Not many people
Really?
know that. Yeah.
Wow.
And she
Slapping the bag.
lapping the bass, and she's tall like Arron and I, so she couldn't reach like the tuners on a full scale. So she bought a short scale Fender Mustang. It's pretty sweet. But
Nice.
yeah, so I use that when I play bass.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically music. I love music. It's like it's like an old friend at this point where we've done a lot together, and I've had a chance to perform music in about I don't know 10 to 12 countries, and build relationships with leaders in recovery and faith around the world, and keep a lot of those relationships today, which is really cool. So
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned the work that you do with addiction recovery. Where and how did that come into place in your life? And like, why did that grab your heart
yeah,
and your interest?
that's a great question. So my wife Jillian comes out of a background of substance abuse, and so that's part of her journey, and really something that Jesus totally set her free from.
Mm.
And if you are a member of the recovery community and you attend meetings and things, that's not a very popular story. Nobody wants to hear that somebody actually experienced a catalytic event where they didn't have withdrawal symptoms the next day, and that's very uncommon.
Mm.
Just so we're clear, that's what we call a miracle. That's what we call a modern day miracle. But that was her experience, and so my wife started following Jesus also because of that reality change. Like, wow, he has the power to do that, and just experiencing his love for the first time. And my story is a little similar, but I never was actually into much substance abuse, but was in a frat when I really gave my whole heart to the Lord. And so we just found that there were a lot of people in our generation and younger who we wanted to help save them from going down certain roads that we went down. And so drug prevention was always a part of what we did, even since like we started in 2005. We'd go into schools or juvie centers, and we're talking whether we're in El Salvador or Russia or America, Jamaica, do a lot of street outreaches, help people get connected with recovery. Recovery is a very redemptive thing, and it's one of my favorite communities in the U.S. for sure. They are alive and well and kind of unstoppable, and they're not afraid of the dark. They
Yeah.
know what it means to face some really dark, heavy stuff, and find uh, freedom from that. And we say the opposite of addiction is not recovery. The opposite of addiction is actually connection or community. And so recovery gets that really well. I think the church has a lot to learn from recovery. But that's why we got started. It was 2017 when I realized I was hearing stories over and over from people that I knew and loved that they were struggling with this addiction to pain medication mainly.
Yep.
And I just didn't quite understand what was happening. And the more I started really wrapping my head around the opioid epidemic, I realized, wow, here I've been traveling to other parts of the world helping with things like this. Like in Jamaica, we did 4 years in a row of trying to help people get into recovery with some residential treatment facilities there in Ocho Rios. And here in our own backyard, I was losing people I know and love from my childhood to something I didn't understand was right here, and that's a very,
Wow.
very complex story. I totally advise anyone who wants to understand more of how we got here in the U.S. to read the book Dreamland. Great book, and it will kind of back that truck way up to how we became a country that used over 90% of the world's opioids. For a long time there, but it also affected my family. I have a loved one who we almost lost to a heroin and methamphetamine addiction. So yeah, it's something I care about.
Yeah.
We shifted our focus from international to taking those resources and putting them in our backyard. We created a music-driven film experience that helped tell the story of how families around the U.S. and Indiana were affected by this. And
Yeah.
really, our goal was to aim for the heart, because I noticed there was a lot of messaging and these call-out meetings happening, but nobody seemed to care. They're like, well, who cares? They're just drug addicts, so let them do what they want to do and save us the tax dollars. You'd hear things like that. We'd meet first responders who had a 3-strike policy that, like, hey, I'll Narcan you and save you 3 times, but after that, and it's like, wow, that means you get to be judge and jury for someone's life. And when you know somebody, and I have so many friends who have made it out of that, and they may have hurt dozens of people in that journey of addiction, of active addiction, but on their journey of recovery, I've seen some of them literally help thousands of people. That's serious. I could name names right now. And so you just never know the value of a life. And I think that as Christians, that's something we need to
Yeah.
always come back to. So
Wow.
My biggest moments in my life that have changed me, transformed me, grown me into who I am, and probably will be the same pattern that helps me become who I'm meant to still become, is when somebody had a hope within them for me
mm,
that I didn't have for myself. Um, and just hearing that with the recovery community, how they've come out of it, and now they have a hope for those that are in it.
hmm
And while you're in it, you don't I mean, for a while, you may have a hope or sometimes even a false hope or a false um, telling yourself, one day I'll get out of this, right? But on the day to day, when you're in it, it's there's a lot of hopelessness that your reality will be any different than what it is in that moment. So when somebody like Two-Eight Ministries can come alongside and bring people who have enormous hope together and let those that are in addiction borrow that hope,
Mm-hmm.
which the
I
real
love
hope,
that.
I mean, it's if it doesn't come from, in my beliefs, if it doesn't come from Christ, then it will eventually run out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or even at the very best, even if it doesn't really run out, it's an artificial hope. It's a temporary hope. But that eternal hope, once that's living within you, you can't not have it for others because it wasn't yours to begin with. And it's now that you've adopted it, you have to share it. And so, some of those first responders that are like, I've got a 3-strike policy. After 3, I'm done. They may not have the same hope.
Mm.
And, they may have hope and we show up, we help them, we Narcan them, we revive them, and they put their hope in that. And if 3 times that fails, you know, where's a first responder going to put their hope if all they know is the hope is our profession, our equipment, and nothing changes, so I think maybe even some of the first responders who aren't struggling with addiction the way some of the people are that they show up to try to save are, but some of them may not have that hope that you have within you. So it's like if by the time it's 3 strikes and you're out, and you're showing up in people's lives, and maybe before they even have their first strike, maybe it's on their third strike, maybe it's their last strike that they would have. But God is unconditional. So
Yeah. I appreciate that. Well, it's interesting because when we started doing the work we did around raising awareness, overdose awareness around the state, we really hoped that these events we would do with this film experience and stuff and the music and it was aimed for the heart and it helped people see people in a different way, you know. And at one point in that show, we'd have the lights down, and I would share my side of like how this has affected my community and my family and my friends. And I would hold up a glow stick and I'd break it, and it would light up. And I'd say, if this has affected you or your loved ones, I'd like for you to break that stigma with me tonight. And we would just watch these rooms light up around the state, and it was powerful. And we would our intent was that we would go outside after that event and stand at our table, our resource table, like there were other ones there for, the different recovery resources in the area. And we were really hoping that we'd see people decide to step out of active addiction and
Yeah.
into recovery.
Yeah.
And really, most people who were in active addiction didn't want to come within 10 miles of a
Yeah.
recovery event,
Yeah.
But what ended up happening that was really tough was there'd be a line of people that would stand at our table and they were there to tell us who they already lost.
Mm.
That was tough. I wasn't ready for that.
Wow.
And so we discovered pretty early on that our LED wall that we had ordered from China, after COVID, so that we could help do these events and get the messaging out there and do it with excellence. We started
Pre-tariff or
yeah, I appreciate yeah, thank you. Thank you first.
sorry.
Yep. We started doing all these outdoor events and wanted to use some of the audiovisual elements and stuff. But we realized a lot of what we got that LED wall for was to show the faces of those we've already lost that we wanted to honor, those lives that we wanted to honor. Maybe they never got it figured out this side of heaven, but those families needed a chance to tell their story. And then there's the person who would come that just ran out of hope. I have a friend who amazing counselor, and he said you can actually survive without love. You cannot survive without hope. And there's that fascinating study that's out there about rats that scientists could put in the water and see how long they could tread water. And it wasn't that long. But if the second group, they would just relieve them before that time, and they would just dry them off, feed them, let them some water, and they would put them back in, and it was exponential increase with how long they could swim when they just had hope that they might get rescued. And that's just rats. So you're exactly right, Aaron. I love that you brought it down to we need to be able to have hope that goes farther than ourselves. And you said it. we need to let people borrow our hope
We
sometimes.
have to.
And I needed these stories as much as anybody because I needed to know that those who are in my life who haven't beat this yet, that it's possible for them. And recovery is possible. And we just need to hear that hope is possible. Life change is possible. And I don't know about you, but I just need to be in those spaces
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
bring it where it doesn't belong. We always say we try to bring hope and the faith, hope, love, and Jesus where it's desperately needed, and hardest to find,
Yeah.
and I have passion for that. So
Yeah. Like you take like your wife, for example, and how long has she been clean?
yeah, like almost 25 years, I think, at this point. So
25 years. Yeah.
yeah,
And
get close.
like where she's at now is like she is able to envision a world where addiction is not part of
Yeah.
people's stories, right?
Hmm.
But the people who it is part of their story at the moment, and where she may have been 25 years ago, is like some people just need a hope that like it's not part of my story every hour. Maybe it's they need to believe that they can maybe make it a day. And
Hmm.
then there's another segment of people need to believe that like maybe they can go a week or a
Hmm.
month or a year. And then those who
Yeah.
step into the recovery, they need the stories and the hope to know that it will not just be while things are good, as soon as the first bad thing happens or the first trigger happens, that they'll go back to it and they'll know that,
Hmm.
they can be for them for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And then those who get through recovery and they want to share it with others,
Yeah.
because that's when I gave my life to God, probably the first 4 years, 4 to 5 years, I was so focused on learning it, understanding it for myself. When
Hmm.
God matured me and grew me to a point that these past 5 to 6 years now, I already have it. I have eternity.
Hmm.
Now I'm driven by for those who don't have it.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that's the part where you're like all the work that Two-Eight Ministries puts in, you're not trying to create something and achieve something for yourself. You've already achieved it.
Mm.
You're trying to advance it for others to achieve. And that's the part that when that's the heart of people, that I love to get behind them and champion them and learn and love and multiply, because
Thanks, man.
um we're not trying to obtain something anymore because we've
Yeah.
obtained it. We're trying to offer it, being that messengers of reconciliation now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and some of it too is just balancing the news narrative a little bit because news knows that like tragedy sells, It's like,
Right.
boy, let's just keep freaking people out with all the terrible news. But there's a lot of really, really good news happening.
Yeah.
And we wanted to create a space where we could just amplify that as loud as we could, and let people know, hey, not only is it possible, it's happening right here.
Yeah.
And you can talk to this guy. He lives right here with you. And maybe you haven't met him yet.
Yeah.
And there's 40 some vendors here at this event that you can go learn why they're here and what they are bringing to this region as well. It's fun, man, to bring like-minded people like that together and to create a platform for others to be able to say what needs to be said. There's a lot of good news we need to hear.
That's awesome. I love the thing that kept coming to mind for me while you were talking was the idea of um we get caught in this, well, this is who I am,
Hmm.
and we forget to look at this is who I could be.
Oh,
Mm.
And that we that could go any part of life, any addiction, anything, but specifically in this area that came to mind. And I just thought, man, that's so powerful that you are in a place. uh Jillian has seen that, and you've experienced that, and I've been at least to a couple of the
mhm,
events that you've done, and just seeing people catch what you're doing, even if they might not know somebody. um, they come away going, I want to be part of this. This is bigger than me. I want to help somebody come away and change their perspective of saying, well, this is who I am. This is all I'm ever going to be, to go, no, this is who I am now. That's not who I'm going to stay.
mm.
This isn't where I'm going to stay. This is who I could become. This is where I could be in the future. And I want to get there. And to have that, like you said, hope.
That's awesome, man. Thank you. But one of the things I love too is when I talk about our work, I realize I almost never mention music. And really people are like, well, you guys are the musicians, right? Where's the music fit into all that? And music is such a common language that it allows us to express some of these heavy truths and sing about the comeback. It also just creates a space that I don't know. It's like it's really hard to get people to want to come out to like a call out meeting on opioids and
Yeah.
how to use Narcan
Right.
and like, hey, come to a training on this. And but if you throw a festival or have a concert, it's just an easier invite. And
Yeah.
we wanted to make things accessible too, you know. So it's been interesting to use music in different ways than I have in the past as well. But no, thank you, man. We love to create that space, and I'm going to use a big word. I'm trying this out, and if somebody's watching this and they know I said it wrong, you can just put that in the comments and correct it. But the word ephemeral, I think, is the word,
What?
and it's just ephemeral. It's what happens if you eat too much White Castle. No, I'm just joking. No, ephemeral would be the idea of like something that's just kind of short lived. It's like a moment, you know, and you think about like the mayflies. If you ever go up to like, I grew up sailing on the Great Lakes. My dad's a sailboat racer. How random is that?
Wow.
Yeah, Gary Maitlen. He's like the best sailboat racer. And so I'd grow up, and it was so boring as a kid with ADD. I was like, let's get on a motorboat. We can go fast instead of a sailboat so slow, you know. But I love it now. It's peaceful. It's a really a neat sport actually. But these mayflies would be all over Putin Bay and Port Clinton where we had our boat and stuff. And I was just like, this is crazy. What are these things? And learned at a young age. My dad explained that they just live like a couple days.
Yeah.
They basically mate and they die and there was their life. And you know that's ephemeral. And I think of events can be fleeting like that too. And so one of the things that we've really tried to do over the last few years is how can we start bringing not just instruments and PAs and you know LED walls and stuff, but also the cameras and the microphones that are going to capture these moments so that they can live longer and can be shareable so people can like what you're doing with this podcast is really important to just create resources that can live longer, you know, and keep this narrative going so more people can join the conversation if they missed it. It's hard to get a huge turnout to a marginalized community, you know.
Yeah.
You don't have like thousands of people always showing up to recovery events, you know, but they can join if we take the time to document and to keep the conversations going like what you guys are doing here. So I love the ripple effect, trying to keep it going, man. And it's important what you're doing here. So
What's been the highlight of this journey, and what's been the hardest part? What's been one of the rock bottoms where it's like I don't know if I'm going to keep it going or am I
yeah,
even doing anything? And then what's one of the moments that have been like, yeah, I'm right where God has called me to be, and I can't be doing anything else.
man, that's such a great question. Yeah, we don't talk about the rock bottoms very often, but for me, it was I'm a yes man. I'm an optimist. Traver knows this because we'll say, yeah, we'll totally leave that room we borrowed here in Texas in good shape. Well,
Yeah.
I have great intentions, but I'm a very optimistic person. And, you know, we said yes to some work that forced us to scale a lot. And I was like, oh, we can pull this off. And really, God had been bringing a lot of our artist community together here in Indianapolis. That's the only way we've been able to do what we do is through relationship, through partnership. And I love that. I love doing that team. But when it came to
Collective
some of the
movement.
yeah, the collective movement and getting to share the work, you know. But there are certain parts of it that I just didn't seem to know how to hand off. And I was kind of, we would say, building the airplane as we're learning to fly it. And here we are trying to build these systems that weren't quite in place yet. And I just noticed that there was about a year plus where I was just not Sabbathing really. I wasn't resting much and I wasn't inviting people in to help. I wasn't asking for help. I'm not always great at that. I wasn't telling the story. I wasn't sharing the low points. I was just focusing on the high stuff. And finally coming to the ends of myself and realizing I need to ask for help. One of the first things I noticed was that some of my insecurities that have come from not making the basketball team in sixth grade or whatever, you know, the securities we they grow into this false identity narrative we have.
Yeah.
I noticed that I was afraid to ask for real help from people who were better than me.
Mm.
And yet I watched others do that. I'm like, good on you. Yeah, you like recruited the best people you could. And I hang out with entrepreneurs and people who run nonprofits and for profits and all that. And their goal is to be like the worst person at the table, you know, to surround yourself with the best people.
Yeah.
And yet I was just afraid to ask for help from the best. And so I think that low point, coming face to face with some of those core lies in my life and stuff, those insecurities was really important. because then I was able to see them for what they were and really ask for help from some very talented, other builders and leaders who have come alongside. And so seeing us grow from like a husband wife thing into an amazing team, and I have so many friends that I'm super thankful for going through those hard transitional years with us and helping us wrangle this thing and figure it out to where it could be bigger. And finally, what I love about it now is I don't have to be at the center of this thing. And so I love to watch somebody else on that platform that I helped establish and to let them go take the gifts of their gold and share it with their peers and to know that they're the right one to do it anyway. And it's not about us, and to create space for others. So I love creating opportunities for someone else to kind of find their break, and an opportunity to use their gifts. So
Just like Jesus with the disciples.
if you had a music ministry,
Yeah.
right.
But for a while, it was like, the people around him, the disciples around him, want to be with him, want to
Mhm.
watch him do it. But when he is like, sending them out,
You got this.
and, we all have those journeys ourselves where we've been sent out
Mhm.
and we've not felt ready.
Yeah.
Like we still kind of want to be part of something that God has called somebody into, and we're kind of a supporting act in it. Um, and then there's been times where God's called us into being the leaders and the innovators and the launchers of something He's planted within us.
Mhm.
And during that time, when everyone's looking at you as if you're the kind of that main character in that, and they're a supporting act, it's sometimes hard to get them to see that God's the main character, and they've just been a supporting act of
Mhm.
a supporting act. And discipleship is
Mhm.
kind of like, imitate me as I imitate Christ.
Mhm.
And um, you know, in that kind of that cycle, sometimes it's the person who's imitating you as you're imitating Christ, that when you're trying to encourage them that they are now imitating Christ and to stay focused on Christ and invite the next. And it's that while you're kind of climbing a ladder,
Mhm.
it's like having one hand on the next and then one behind you help. And it's kind of like we're all
Yeah.
that rising tide raises all boats type thing.
Mhm.
Um, but when people are around you, it's sometimes um, it's hard to be that one that's reaching up and asking for help.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to reach back and, oh, I'll help everyone, but I don't want to put the
Mhm.
burden of where I'm at on others.
Right.
And it's not meant for everybody, but there are some that it would be a blessing for them to be able to help you up. It
Absolutely.
wouldn't be a burden. So
Absolutely.
I think even like dads need to have other dads that they grow with. Now, they don't need to put the responsibility of them growing as a father on their child, right?
Mhm.
Their role is to be that leader and that father so the kid can be a kid.
Yeah.
But there are other dads that you can reach up to
Mhm.
and grow with and
That's good.
to help your kids. So
So I think that's kind of heartbeat of what you started too. Is like there needs to be these spaces where especially as men, we're not always great at asking for help, and
yeah.
men who are starting ventures and are in the corporate space. I'm a big fan of Praxis and our Redemptive Entrepreneurship, guild, which I know you're connected with those guys too, and the idea that business at its core can be exploitive, like
Yeah.
I win, you lose.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times how people approach it. And we love to see ethical business where it's like, no, there can be a win-win. There's got to be a way for us to win together.
Yeah.
Let's look for that. But the redemptive build
Yeah.
is the one that's saying, I'm ready to lose so that others win.
Yeah.
Like I'm ready to lose so that we win. And man, I feel like Synergize is another space where that's really the culture there. And I love that you keep
Yeah.
bringing it back to relationships first. And I think that's like one of the conversations we had recently at that group was when I was at practice class was like, what is the identity of Indianapolis even
Mm,
for our city? What could it be? And I love some of like I was bragging on my small town heritage, but I love that we can be a city that can compete in all of these different, you know,
Yeah.
aspects of business and culture and arts and whatever, but we might be able to do it in a different way. where we can all win. Like we might not have to make
Right.
the American Idol model where, you know, we have clear winners and losers and
Yeah.
you just amplify the people who are already winning. But no, like what if we actually create sandboxes and gardens where people can win together? And maybe money and profit isn't the only measurement of success.
Yeah.
And because what are we teaching our kids and our, you know, students in colleges and all that,
And-
you know?
One of the things that I've seen, I think this fits with you and your team. And one of the benefits is having known you for over a decade now.
We're old now.
But it's been cool to see, and I don't think I realized this until this conversation, is you were always in different circles. It was Eric at Two-Eight, and you were the identifying person, which makes sense because you created it. But you're at a place now. You mentioned having a great team with you, and now it's Amber at Two-Eight,
Yeah.
Scott at Two-Eight, Mike at Two, and it's really cool that it's like it's not just you.
Yeah.
And I think I've seen that in you with building your team, going through those growing pains of how do I release this thing that I know I need to, but maybe don't want to or don't know how to. And you stepped into that and allowed yourself to do that and to make those hard decisions, and allowing somebody else to shine. And so now it's the Two-Eight team and not just Eric and Two-Eight.
It's interesting we're getting to like the Dr. Phil level of this interview with me because like your question earlier kind of got to the heart of that. And I would say for anybody listening to this or watching this and you're growing a business or a nonprofit or whatever you're doing, like there's different reasons for people not being able to move out of that spot. And I think mine, like I've really circled that a lot. Like what was it that kept me in the like not wanting to share that burden and say I need help. And I think for me, a lot of it was just fear too. I think it was fear. I think it was some of that insecurity. I didn't think that I was worthy to ask for, you know, people better than me to help.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm not a big enough organization to ask for people like that to commit their life's work to this, or you know, it's my life's work, it's my burden. I don't expect anyone else to sacrifice but me. And yet I was seeing plenty of people sacrifice and being willing to sacrifice because the mission's bigger than all of us. But my superpower, the irony, and so it's interesting you pointed that out because for a long time there, I think it was just like an Eric Gilly thing.
Yeah.
And it had less to do with us thinking that we were a big deal and needed to be the middle, had more to do with me not being willing to ask for help.
Yeah.
And invite others.
Big enough.
Yeah. And
big
it,
enough.
I'm not a big enough deal.
right.
Yeah.
And it never came out from my side that it was like you wanted it to
Right.
you.
I need this. Yeah.
Which was really cool. And so seeing you now, it's and seeing Two-Eight and what it's doing and the impact that you guys are having, it's really cool to see.
Thank you. Well, and if you roll the clock back to like 25-year-old Eric, who literally had just gotten back from spending a year in India and had a random donation come in as I was starting this brand new nonprofit and was able to buy like a small PA and make a down payment on a Class A motorhome that me and Jillian moved into, and just massive steps of faith. Like I found myself, especially over the last 5 years, like multiple times looking back, being like, how did I? Wow, I would look up to that guy. Like I need that Eric speaking into my life right now. And I realized my superpower was always this understanding that I wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
But this huge God that I was following was doing it all. Like he's the tornado I'm chasing, you know, like I don't trust me. Like everything I touch is going to succeed because of who I'm following, who I'm with.
Yeah.
And it was almost this arrogance around the size of Jesus and me believing that I'm like one of his favorite kids or something, you know? And so it's like, here we go, let's go. And I noticed that I wasn't carrying that into some of these other decisions as a leader to believe that he could do even this kind of work too and recruit and build an organization. And so when I kind of rediscovered that old crazy faith, I mean, it led to me going to India again in my 40s with Justin Masterson to make a documentary. We have no business making. We've never made a documentary, but just knowing like there's a huge story happening. We need to go capture this, and just called up some friends that were professional filmmakers, and we flew over there. And I mean, there's going to be a documentary coming out later this year that you'll get to see. It was a little tip of the hat to going back to that crazy bold faith.
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, "What do you mean you're a musician? You don't make movies?" Well, just did. Why not? Like, why can't God do whatever, if he gives you a passion for something, meet him in that place
Yeah.
Yeah.
and figure it out, But so it's been fun to go from just music to some of the media world too, and to find ways of amplifying. And I got to be a student this time. I may have went to India in my 20s to be a missionary. I went back in my 40s to get to ask the questions that I have that have grown over the last 20 some years, like,
Yeah.
man, how do you follow is Jesus worth dying for?
Mm.
Is my community of believers that I roll with, are they the kind that are willing to go to jail? Would we go to jail together for this? And to get to ask people who were Hindus only months before, even some of them who had been physically healed by Jesus. They don't talk about Christianity or their pastor or their church. They talk about the Jesus they just talked to that morning and who healed them and who was leading them, like he was in the room with us, because he is. And it was so rewarding for me to get to ask my questions and get to rediscover parts of my faith that I had lost and get some of that big faith back. Because I'll tell you what, man, we got a lot of work to do. We as believers, we got some spaces we need to create that are going to show that other worldview that's always at work. Yes, we're in that false identity, like we can all operate out of. You're going to self-protect, self-promote, you're going to compete, you're going to compare. But if you can get in that other headspace we're created to be in, that we all can tap into, the kingdom of God is not elusive. It's not around the corner. It's not when you get free from your addiction or when you stop doing the things you should do. It's available right now. That's
Yeah.
what's beautiful about it. You have only to step into it each day. And when you get into that headspace, that's where there's enough for all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where you sit at the table of communion where it's like, my enemies are worth dying for.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's the kind of love that ends wars. That's the kind of altruism that, you know, businesses operate totally different from that headspace. So how do we stay in that true identity and create space like Synergize where it's like, you don't have to just go to church for this. You can be with peers and have this conversation, because church can be at your office.
Yeah.
Church can
Yeah.
be at your sales meeting. And I don't mean church like the gross kind that your grandma shamed you with. I mean where there's another worldview at work and where there's kingdom principles at work and not empire. So yeah, it's important. Nexus is that space. Like Traver is, if you don't know Traver's side of the story, I mean, this guy's helping create a space where big ideas can happen and where you can try out a venture and not break the bank doing it, and have a support around you and other creative thinkers and people who want to see you succeed, with the goal of like, let's change the world. Why can't we change the world?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
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 What are you excited about in the future? And like what, or I don't know, just what are you excited about?
I think I used to be really excited about this call to go proclaim, you know, faith and Jesus and all that, and to go be maybe like the missionary. And I think what I'm most excited about is that the movement of God right now on a global scale is is more powerful than it's ever been. I think in the West we see a growing celebrity culture and some things that really don't line up with what Jesus really taught. We're seeing generations of Americans, more passionate about becoming an Instagram influencer than ever wanting to be any kind of a servant. That's typically what leads to the downfall of nations. But I'm just saying, when people don't want to be a servant anymore, nobody wants to do the jobs that nobody wants. Nobody wants to humble themselves and serve others. That's a scary place. And the Christian message at its core is one of the greatest among you is a servant. And so when you go follow some of these first wave movements of Jesus happening in parts of the world where there's high stakes, and you see high caste Hindus coming to Jesus, you see, people in China still this vibrant underground faith movement in China and other parts of the world. Our friend Josh Howard, who works out of here too, is saying we're at a time in the church age that Paul would have killed to go see. You know what I mean? It's like we're always like, oh, I wish I could have seen the book of Acts and be alive when Paul was alive. I think Paul wishes he could be alive right now.
Yeah.
And so I am extremely excited, less about what I'm doing and more about what Jesus is doing on the earth, and continuing to follow some of these movements and to write songs from what I experience and take away, like what it means to me as a songwriter or musician or whatever tool God puts in your hand. But I think that I see Christianity more about an unstoppable, beautiful movement that can't be taken from you.
Yeah.
We have everything we need, and there's enough for all of us. And those who get into that river, it's really exciting. It's really fun. And the circumstances of your life or a nation doesn't really shake it. It's an unshakable, beautiful thing that connects all of us. It's a really, really big story that we can join and be a part of. Or you can get back to trying to fit it into your narrative,
Mm.
into your brand, into your story. Okay, well, how can I make my business Christian? Or no, how can you fall into the story narrative of God that's way bigger than you ever were, ever will be? It's way bigger than any generations, or any nation. It's just unstoppable. How can we get into that story and just live in that narrative and let it change us instead of us trying to force it? So I don't know. I'm excited for that. That's happening in my life right now, and I'm trying to approach ventures and relationships, my work, my marriage, my personal time with Jesus from a bigger place than I used to. And to say, help me remember to just get in the river. You're the river. You're flowing through all the nations right now. You're also flowing in America too. I want to be like the kid that's getting his floaties on running to that river. I don't want to be the one on the sideline saying, I don't know, that's great and all, but like we're doing a pretty good job over here. I don't want to self-protect and self-promote over here, saying that we got to figure it out. I want to be a student. I want to continue to be a student of the King of Kings and the servant of servants. I've got a lot to learn from him. And so I'm trying not to be somebody who has his mind made up about everything these days. So,
What does that look like? That theory, that from theory to practice in your day to day.
yep.
How does that go from theory to practice in your day to day
Yep.
work?
Literally practicing it in yesterday had a meeting with some of our state leaders who are, there's a lot shifting in our government right now that affects some of the contracts and funding around some of the work that we do in the recovery space, because sometimes those contracts can get slashed or paused or whatever, and it affects people we care about and work with.
Yeah.
And knowing that there's a lot of fear going on with
Yeah.
our recovery leaders around the state, some of them have really big teams and a lot of staff that they need to make a lot of big payroll every couple weeks, and when a lot of your funding is wrapped up in federal funding and the state of our government, that can create a lot of fear. So how can I step into that space
Mm.
and be a voice of, actually, what if there's enough for all of us?
Yeah.
What if recovery, like Christianity, can be done for free and has been done for free for a long time? What if we can get back to just, there's enough for today? How can we think differently? How can we do the exact same thing in a different way? So having conversations like that with anyone I'm working with in that fearful place, continuing to put this documentary together around India so that we as a nation can just have a chance to look back at the old magic that we kind of lost, which is you don't have to have this big building. You don't have to have all these programs. There's kind of this beautiful thing that is more about the one who started it than the way we fit it into our little boxes and make it, America turns it into a business in some ways we don't mean to. And then also it plays out in the fact that as I've been saying yes to that crazy Jesus Grande, like he just opens doors that were never even on my radar.
Yeah.
And so for the first time in 20 years of cross-cultural international vocational ministry, and first time in 20 years, I have somebody from another country paying for me and my team to go to Poland to be a part of a disciple making conference, 25 nations across Europe, to
Wow.
learn about what Jesus is doing in Europe right now through underground disciple making, as we look at a post Christian context for this gospel narrative that we're all trying to stay in. And it's neat when you just show up to the conversation and you make friends who think like that, think differently. I'm like, wow, I've always had to fundraise to travel
Yeah.
with this kind of work. And so to have I had to like change my online donor platform to accept whatever Norway's currency is right now, because my friend from Norway, who's a drummer in the biggest band in Norway right now, they're like Coldplay over there and filling up stadiums, and it's not like Christian band. He's a believer, he's a disciple maker, but he's the drummer of this band. I don't know if it's because his record sales he's able to do this or what, but we were receiving this donation from Norway. And I'm like, you are so unstoppable and unpredictable, Jesus.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to Poland at the end of July to learn what Jesus is doing there and make new friends and learn what I can learn from them, how to just be a better human being, a better son of God, a better son to my parents, a better husband to my wife, Jillian, a better friend to all y'all, and just a better contribution to my community here. Because at the end of the day, our community is only as strong as we show up to be. So yeah, that's how it's playing out right now. It's kind of crazy when I say it out loud, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a utopia of like you're almost like God's opening doors and doors that you've not even seen, and you have so many relationships now that are surrendered to this belief that God is big enough and he'll work it out. And like what is it like when like going from that to just back to the day to day, like knowing that like this communion that you're having with God and this growth and like everything's happening, knowing that like that's not what everybody is walking through. Some people are dancing with the devil, and um that they're like I don't know exactly how to word it, but it's like knowing that like the same way like when you meet somebody, knowing that like they've got their own experience of what life has been. I've got my own, and the goal is not to convince of our own, but to understand theirs, right? But at the same time, once you build a relationship and you get to know each other, you've known each other for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, it's sometimes we believe or assume that we're on the same journeys, but we're still on individual journeys. You see the marriages sometimes, right? Where it's like, what I thought, and then it's like two people that live together that we're all in, we're with each other at times, but we're always in our own heads and we're in our own journeys and we're either seeking God or seeking flesh or whatever. So there's just like this, when you're come out of like these meetings like that and with these people that are like just sold out and believe in the kingdom story, just like you, and then you step out back into just normal reality, and the kingdom story is like it's absurd to others. How, like, what is that dynamic like? Do you keep trying to share it? Do you like what's that like? Especially even at the concerts, like you've got a team of people, you show up to a city, and it's like you guys have all been part of this, like, hey, this is what we're doing. And then now you've got a variety of some people that, because it's addiction recovery, they don't even want to come. Some people, because it's they don't know that it's maybe addiction recovery until they get there. And then people are all at their own different levels. How do you resonate with everybody at whatever level they're at, um, and not just become discouraged when people aren't at that same level?
That's a great question, man. I think I show up differently right now than I used to. And by the way, I'll get that ephemeral word out again. I think that's what it is. But I mean, if we're not careful, like we always say at 2A, our real goal is we want to create moments that lead to movement. We want to create a moment that is so real and so raw, and that you could take a step of faith, of courage, of repentance, whatever it is that leads to life change. Like, and that can happen in a moment. And if we pay attention to that, like, man, life is really just a series of moments. How can we, even the three of us this week, be intentional about the moments we're helping create that are going to lead to learning, growth, the fruits of the spirit we want to see happen. But I feel like the way I show up, but the reason I say I show up differently, Aaron, I've seen you be such a great champion of others. Like, I will see you roll into a room and you're constantly just bragging on everybody else in the room. And it's like, I can brag on you all day. I do behind your back, but it's just like, but you're such a champion of others. And I kind of am too, because I really, I cannot talk about my work or my life without talking about my friends, because they're like the best part of it. Like that, I'm not a rich man, but I'm rich in relationships and friends. Thank God for that. But you think about the most competent, famous, amazing friend you have. Imagine showing up into every room you go into with him, her, and you're like, I don't have to worry about whatever boring business meeting I'm about to have. It's gonna get rocked because I got Michael Jordan, right? You just helped rock it in the last room. And it's like when you show up knowing you don't really need to deliver on anything because the one you showed up with, um, you can almost sit back and like, let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
Because I've seen you do it. You're like, hey, have you met so and so? And then you just let a conversation play out. I try to kind of act more like that and have that expectation that why wouldn't something unpredictable happen when we have this incredible presence, like showing up in every single room?
Yeah.
Because that makes dishes more excited.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't even know what he's going to say to me while I'm doing dishes right now. Because if we get back to who it is we're showing up with,
Yeah.
it
Mhm.
changes the way we show up. And it also takes a lot of burden off of me. I don't need to show up trying to
Yeah.
throw stats out or try to impress somebody in the room. I can just show up and be present to others and get excited to introduce them to the big one in the room with me, you know, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not just this idea that, oh yeah, God's everywhere. Yeah, I know that. It's truly each moment trying to allow yourself to experience every moment with every person and every conversation with God there with you already. That's it's hard, but when you get in that rhythm, yeah, it's
if you know who you're showing up with,
yeah.
and it just, if you really, really believe it, that's one of the things I loved about getting to learn about Jesus again from Hindus who, I mean, they were Hindus and now they're Christians. And I was just talking about this with another filmmaker earlier this morning, that it actually is a great expression of Christianity because Hindus, they are very aware of the presence of a deity.
Yeah.
And so when they're at a mandir, like it is like this deity is right there. I can see it. That's why they love their idols. I can see it. They walk into a door. Ganesh is the first god you honor when you walk into a new space. Like if you buy a new car, you go to Ganesh's temple on an auspicious day like Wednesday to dedicate your car to the god Ganesh because he's to be honored first, not like greatest, but first in order. But it's just always about presence. And there's no idea that Jesus is in some book like a Bible and we read about what he did a long time ago. For them, when we interviewed these, I mean, we have almost 10 terabytes of these interviews of people who didn't talk about their pastor or a church or a move or their movement. They talked about Jesus, like he was right there. He's the one they just talked to that morning. He's the one they spent 2 hours with that morning, almost every day. That's just crazy. I don't know many people that pray like that spend time in his presence like that.
Wow.
But knowing you're not alone, like knowing it, like I'm going to follow you into every room you go in today, you would act just a little different.
Yeah.
You talk just a little different to kind of be mindful that I'm there and whatever, especially if my presence was really, really there and you knew it was there. We don't I don't live like that, but I'm trying to try this experiment out a little bit. And it's been
Yeah.
fun. It's been fun.
Oh. It's almost like instead bring your kid to work.
Bring your dad to work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Would you talk that way if your dad was here?
What else do you
That
just
too.
want to share? What's on your heart or in your mind or in your future or in your past or whatever that you just want to share
Man,
with other people?
that's a good question. I would say just like if we're just throwing out like stuff that's been helpful, um, you make sure you just remind yourself today that you know your body's a temple and a garden, and take
Mm,
care of your garden, and don't go looking for just the next group that's going to help you elevate your business or your career. Go find a garden, one that like its input in your life is going to produce the long, sustainable
Wow.
fruit of life. And like you're a good gardener, bro. Like you're all about creating gardens, and Traver is too. And so look for people because it's funny, I hang out with these people who work in the addiction recovery space or law enforcement or fire chiefs and stuff. And they'll all say the same thing. I feel like at the end of the day, it's your pack that will hold you back. You are who you roll with. We would say it to an 8-year-old. We'd say it to an 80-year-old.
yeah.
Be careful who you orbit with on the innermost, and remember that your marriage is a garden that you need to tend to, and don't try to just win every argument to get something accomplished. Like treat it like a garden. You're trying to grow stuff that's you treat a garden differently than you do a car. And so I don't know. I just think that that's been a really helpful metaphor lately. And
Mm.
we're living we're living human beings, not human doings. And so remembering to just take time to be. I'm trying to get back on my mountain bike this year because when I get on my mountain bike, I can be like a kid who has a sense of wonder and awe again, that I'm not that big a deal. This forest around me is so much older than me and alive and so much healthier than our culture in so many ways. There's balance to it. And somebody went ahead of me and carved this mountain bike trail out. This was prepared in advance for me.
Mm.
It's also dangerous. It's not meant to be super safe, but you're made for it. You know, there's like all these metaphors. You can hear that voice, you
Yeah.
can experience that other worldview if you're present to it. But stay in a garden and don't settle for the American version, even of church. Find a faith community that's a garden. And ironically, these gardens are in every church, but
Yeah.
sometimes you got to keep digging till you find the right garden. But don't be so critical of, don't spend so much time criticizing the other thing. Find time to honor the real thing.
Yeah.
People need to be pointed to the real thing. And so help point people to what is true, what is noble, what is praiseworthy, and spend a little more time doing that than just criticizing everything else. So I don't know. I'm trying to live in that sweet spot. In music, we say, stay in the pocket. There's a sense of rhythm when a band plays together, and the bass player and the drummer lay out a pocket for the rest of us. And if you get ahead of it, it's just like, I just feel stressed out. Like the audience feels stressed out. If you get too far behind, you just sound bad. But man, if you can get just in the pocket, just behind the beat and stay in it. And there is a pocket. We are meant to be naturally supernatural. You don't have to be Christian in this space and then not Christian, or just a human being, scientific minded person here. No, like you can't separate it. Like just get in the pocket and just be who you were born to be, and surround yourself with people that are going to help you blossom and grow. And a marriage is meant to be a tree that gets so big that generations can find shade and provision in it. Have a vision for your marriage, for your business, for your friends, for your work, and just grow it like a gardener would. So
Awesome. What's your vision?
I don't know, like what are we talking about? I just talked about my ADHD and the 5 things I try to focus on. My vision is to be like Jesus. And man, he's a hard one to follow. I feel like sometimes we don't see what he's doing because we don't look low enough. So I step into a room and I say, who are you? Who do you see that I don't see in this room right now? So like
Wow.
he's a really, 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 he's the best version of humanity we've ever seen. And I'm trying to be a good human being. And so I'm trying to just really dial in his teaching this season and see what it bears, in life and our lives together and stuff. So yeah,
That's awesome.
stay
Have
connected.
anything else, Traver?
Man, I just love how in this is our 4th episode now, 3 with people, and from day one,
First one, like with AI, or what was?
Yep.
So okay.
No,
yeah,
just
we
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
just
okay.
us.
Yeah.
we're not people.
Exactly. But yeah, it's just allowing the conversation to go where it goes. And we had no agenda except for just hearing what's on your heart and mind, and asking questions as they come up. And I love that every person that we bring on, whether they're a synergized member or Nexus member, are going to be different. And so yeah, a lot of our background is the Christian faith, so that's gonna be a part of it because that's a part of who we are. But I love that, like, yeah, every conversation is gonna be different, and this one was uh really, really good.
Thanks,
So
man.
thank you.
Do you
Got
want
a
to
little like crazy, Jedi there for a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah.
I just turned 45 though. I start talking like an old man now.
Yeah. I mean, you've got.
I have noticed the difference over the past few days.
You notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look great in this beard.
Well, I've been hearing you call people young buck, like
Mm-hmm.
or young pup or whatever. Do you want to pray?
Yeah, I'd love to. Man, I'd love to just, pray for whoever's listening to this right now too. But Father, we thank you that this life with you is a series of invitations, and you never ask us to do anything you haven't already done, and you're not asking us to do it because you need us to do it. You ask us to do things because you're more concerned about who we become than anything we do. And so I just thank you that your desires for us are good. Your plans for us are to prosper us, not to harm us, to give us a hope and a future. And I thank you that you're not in a hurry. You're not worried about the competition in this world. You know that those who have ears to hear and eyes to see they're gonna get it dialed in. They're gonna get in your pocket with you, and play to the song that you're playing. And so I pray for the ability for us to join into that song today. And I pray for whoever's listening to this, if they've not started that practice, that you would help open their eyes, that you'd open their ears and their heart to hear the voice of the one who made them. It's so much easier to figure out today when we know who created us and why today even exists. And so, would you help us find our place in this world? And would you help us be excited to bring the gifts of our gold to new rooms and new spaces where maybe we've been scared to do that? Help us put ourselves out there and help us do it with good intentions too. I pray for the families that are represented and the listeners on the show. Pray that you bless our families and that you help us have a vision for our families, how we could be a beacon of light in a healthy garden for our neighborhoods and our communities. Help us love our neighbors well, to love our churches well, to forgive well. That's so hard to do. Would you help us forgive well this week and to be able to just extend the same mercy that was freely given to us? Will you help us extend it to somebody today and help us be generous? There is enough for all of us. We just thank you for that abundance that your kingdom exists with. And we could give it all away today and there's enough for tomorrow.
Mhm.
And that's just so hard to believe. But I thank you that you proved it, Jesus. And you gave up so much that even the poor weren't poor to you. So help us not be afraid to serve today and to lower to humble ourselves, God, to exalt others in our lives. So we love you and we trust you with the next step. Amen.
Amen.
Awesome.
Cool.
Wow.
Thanks.
Keep
Thank-
coming back. It works if you work it, and you are worth it. That's such a recovery line.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Yeah, man. See if the bump goes into your shot.
Yeah, I'd love.
It's got these tight shots.
I love just listening to you talk to you, like even at church, like when you lead worship at church, um, and then pray a little bit. It's just like I don't know. It's just the sincerity of it. It's for him. It's not for you, and it's not for other. It's like it's just for him, and
Yeah, that's a huge
it,
compliment. Thank you.
yeah,
That
it's
means
pretty awesome.
yeah, and then little tag right there. Mercy Road Carnival, check it out. Or Northwest, sorry, it's family churches. But
Carmel, but
yeah, no, I love our church, man. I'm super proud of being a part of that faith movement here in our state. So
Well,
Yeah.
that's another episode. Traver, do you have any?
Yeah. Thanks for sticking in and join us next time.
Stay classy, San Diego.